Okay. 3 minutes. I'm ready. Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the Finance and Capital Management Committee meeting. I'm Barbara Sykes, Chair of the Finance and Capital Management Committee. Joining us today is the Vice Chair, Member Gregory Harrison, and member of the committee also is Dr. Renee Molinar. We also have with us Member Summer Hall, as well as Member Diane Autry, and our President, Member Carla Jackson. So we are pleased to welcome all of you here today. If there are some who have never attended, welcome. Some who have been here before, welcome back. We're pleased to have you. So first on our agenda, we will read the previous minutes. The two board members will, and then we will. I will ask for a motion to approve the previous board minutes, please.
I was not present at the last meeting. I was at a conference, so I will defer to the rest of the committee.
I move that we approve these minutes of the previous meeting.
Second? So all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so I have it. Also, for those of you who do not have an agenda, let me just go over the agenda just in case you're wondering how things are going to happen today. So we will first have a presentation by one of our assistant treasurer on the state audit access control. We will still next have a presentation on our 5-year forecast. Then our personnel updates. We will then have a presentation and recommendations on our Miller South Pfeiffer Building Project update, a resolution for bond, as well as transportation building improvements, and then the transportation van drivers contract. At the end, we will also look at the board members' event information, unfinished business, new business, and then adjournment. So I know there may be individuals here to talk about, to give comments on the Miller South Pfeiffer project. And so for those individuals who would like to speak, if you would like to wait until after you hear the presentation, that would be fine. If there are individuals here who are here to just generally give a comment, we can do that now. So it's your choice. Would you like to wait to hear the presentation before you make a comment? Yes? Okay. You want to go now? Okay. So, Member Molinar, would you call Councilwoman up, please?
You may read this.
And just as you're coming up, Member Harrison will read our rules as they that we would ask you to abide by as a member of the public. Welcome, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
We ask that participants speak only to matters pertaining to business of the board. We ask that you refrain from speaking on vendors, business matters, formal complaint, grievances, specific students or student records, personnel matters, and or legal matters. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. The board will not respond, but will assign through the superintendent the appropriate person to follow up with you.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, board members, Dr. Thompson, Superintendent Outley, and other staff members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. On March 13, 2023, the APS board vowed not to decrease the district's footprint in Kenmore. But I want to give a little history. In 1999, Kenmore had 10 schools, a high school, a middle school, Miller South School for the Visual and Performing Arts, and 7 elementary schools. In 2000, APS removed Miller South from the Kenmore cluster. Why? To align it with a more desirable school? I don't know. But in 2003, despite its history of voting down levies, Kenmore voted 62% to increase taxes 0.25% to rebuild our schools. Since then, APS has closed 4 of our 7 elementary schools, leaving 1 school for the northern 2/3 of the cluster, Pfeiffer Elementary School. In all, from those tax dollars, Kenmore got 2 new elementary schools and a partially renovated middle school. As we continue to watch our beloved high school being demolished in front of us, we read that plans to rebuild Pfeiffer and Miller South on that site are in jeopardy. Our question is why? Of course, inflation is a real concern, but why were plans that were voted on in July of 2023 stalled so long that tariffs are now also an issue? The LFI dollars approved by Akron voters deserve to be used as they were approved for the construction and maintenance of schools. There is over double the amount in the budget, double. I see the budget for this school, either the planned, all of the plans note $8 to $9 million in LFI dollars for this build. There are more than double that amount in the LFI fund as it stands right now. It's waiting for the Joint Board of Review to make a motion and to approve some use of those dollars. But I'm going to tell you, as the council member in Ward 9, representing Kenmore, I will advocate strongly that all of those funds be used toward any shortfall on this project. This project was promised to this community. These children walk to school in our community. The loss of another school will basically send the students that are redistricted not only out of our community, but out of our district. So I just ask you to consider that as you think about your motions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Is there anyone else that would like to speak generally? Okay, we'll wait until after the presentation. So first up is our Assistant Treasurer.
Sorry, Madam Chair. There are some people signed up that might not be speaking on the Miller South, but on the van driver or van contract update. Do we want to go through the signups or ask them if they want to wait for that update?
If they want to wait until the update on the van driver. Yeah, it was understood. They understand. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Wayne Bowers. I'm one of the assistant treasurers in the finance department. And after the last audit exit conference, Steve asked me to go over the internal access control comments from the state auditors, which I've done with the IT staff. And I'm just going to read you, because it's pretty technical, I'm going to read you what we did so I don't get it a little bit off. But they recommended that the district should develop and implement 3 security administration controls. They said we should require onboarding tickets to identify the specific applications to which employees need access, as well as the menus, roles, and privileges to be assigned within those applications. Role level access is like a car package. So you have Sport and Excel or whatever. So role access means in payroll world that if you get super user access, you have access to everything. Then there's varying degrees of that below that.
Thank you.
So we reviewed when we establish employees' role access, we review their job class in Munis, which is our accounting system, to see what they should have. The current help desk software we currently use does not have an independent field to record the name of the role assigned to an employee. So to address that comment, IT's now begun typing that role information into free text of the ticket so that it's there, it resides in there, but you can't search for it. But that's really all that we can do with this software we have right now. The second recommendation was that we enforce the principle of least privilege user access over all critical systems, which is inherently what we do. We only give out access that's needed. So as supervisors request it, they begrudgingly give it to them if it's needed. So we're already doing that. But we're also now requiring a help desk ticket. So a help desk ticket is required to set that up.
Okay.
And now we're also requiring one to change that. So anytime there's an additional access or reduction in access, we're now requiring that. Number 3 was that we perform an annual confirmation of user accounts with management to help ensure financial and payroll application level access is appropriate. So sometimes an employee will leave at a building and that information won't get up to us very timely. So what we're going to do is send out an email at the end of each school year, and if we don't get a response, start looking into that to see if, is this employee retired? Are they coming back? Just make sure that access is required still. We also reviewed the payroll-related access that's currently granted to all APS employees, so any payroll access that anybody has, just to look at it to see if what the auditors were telling us is reasonable or not. So if we have 40 people that have access to something, is that a good number? So we did that. So we decided to address 2 specific areas with this: the ability to change pay rates, and then the ability to change direct deposit accounts, which are very critical. We don't want people having access to that if they don't need it. So the auditors noted that there were 17 staff who technically were able to edit the paymaster. They may have that access because they have that payroll super user access, but they didn't really know it because they never got in there. We decided that we would reduce that manually down to allow only the 9 employees that really need that. That's 1 in human capital, the 7 payroll team, and then a payroll.
We don't need to hear all of those, Mr. Bauer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the other comment was the auditors also noted that we had 40 accounts with the ability to modify employee deductions, which we've reduced down to 9.
Great,
Just
thank
to
you.
get that. We feel that these modifications will adequately assess the comments from the auditors.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from any members of the committee, any board members? Thank you. No questions. We appreciate it. All righty. We will now have the presentation on our 5-year forecast. Dr. Thompson.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair, President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Outley. So the 5-year forecast, I'm going to walk us through the numbers. This is what I would plan to submit, barring changes, between now and the May adoption on May 27th, submit on the morning of May 28th. So this is what we projected, that we started the fiscal year with $106 million in cash reserves, and we're down to $88 million in cash reserves. What that is obviously telling us is that we are in deficit spending, but we are not running an overall deficit. But we're spending roughly $18 million more this fiscal year than we actually have received. So where is that money going? The general fund is $365 million. We project those expenditures to be $384 million, and that was a net loss of $18,476,000. Where does that come from? 56% from state funding, 39% from local taxes, and then 4% from all other revenue. The projected local taxes, we projected at 144, real estate property 127, public utilities at a little over 16 million, projected state funding 205 million, the Fair School Funding Plan 159, and restricted state funding 33 million, and state share of local taxes at 13 million. It's for overall and projected all other revenue at 16.3. So where do we spend those money? We've talked about this a lot. We know that we spend the majority of our budget on people, and that is the very difficult part, is recognizing that we are a service industry. That's not news to anyone, but the large chunk of our finances goes into salaries, workers' compensation, health care, retirement, et cetera. Our other areas where we have spend is in purchase services and all other expenditures. And So it makes it very, very difficult when you're looking at budget reductions. It becomes all too clear where, unfortunately, some of these reductions have to live. So personnel costs, $310 million. Salaries make up $220 million of that, almost $90 million. Okay, they're going to take me out to Double Street, which I appreciate.
You can continue. We have our copies. You can continue.
So what you're looking at there, Ms. Jackson, that goes with the 5-year forecast submission. It doesn't necessarily match these slides. That's what I will submit to the state, is that packet. Good question. So benefits are almost $90 million. Can I hit the next advance? Purchase services are about $40 million. All their expenditures, $34.5. And this breaks it out. Most of that is in supplies, capital improvements, debt, like, for example, our COPS payment, the payment on this building, all is encompassed in that $34 million. Transfers in and out, $575,000. So from a forecast perspective, what you're looking at right now, side by side, is revenue versus expenditures. And you can see that that gap gets larger and larger as we go across time. And this is showing us what our projected cash balance is from 2004 all the way to 2029, which the first year that we show a deficit is 2029. We have a policy that says we need to keep at least 60 days, 2 months, in cash reserves on hand at all times. And you can see in 2027, we show a deficit, or we show 49 days in cash reserves. And then, of course, it proceeds to get worse and worse from that point moving forward. Student enrollment is also a challenge because our state funding is based on student enrollment, and you can see our student enrollment continues to decline. We had a slight uptick in 2024 to 25. That was primarily because a few school districts that surround us no longer accepting open enrolled students. This gives you an idea of what we spend per student, and it continues to rise. And that's a simple calculation, number of students divided by our total general fund, and there is your expense per student. And that breaks down into $111 per day per student. And again, where does that support come from? State, federal, business taxes, and then property taxes. So what you're seeing right now is our November forecast compared to the 5-year forecast, which you'll see larger in just a minute. But I would like us to focus right here first. So how accurate was our November forecast as it relates to what we're forecasting now, or where we actually ended up? So we projected revenue at $364 million, and it came in at $365.9. We projected a deficit and expenditures at $384 million, and it came in at $384 million. So our current total revenue is over a forecast by $1 million, or 0.3%, and our expenditures are, again, $1 million, or 0.3%. That's pretty darn good. I wanted to remind the board and the community again of what does state receivership mean. So fiscal caution is triggered when there are early signs of financial issues. That's a little vague, I agree. Fiscal watch is not. It's declared when deficits exceed 8% of the general fund revenue. So you just do exactly that. Take your deficit and multiply it out and see where you stand in terms of your total general fund. Once you hit 8% or more, you're in watch. And then 15% or more puts you in fiscal emergency. And these require submission of financial recovery plan. And also what's really important to note under fiscal emergency, that Financial Planning and Supervision Commission is established. It replaces the authority of the board, significantly minimizes the authority of the superintendent and treasurer, and they will cut us to state basic standards in terms of staffing, programming, et cetera, and then they'll tell us to go pass a levy. I think that's kind of analogous to, what we're trying to do is do this very surgically, making these reductions as a surgeon would versus making these reductions as if we're a meat cutter, which is what it's like from the commission perspective. So our May forecast, some of the assumptions first. What we are still looking at is the most recent budget proposal from the House Bill 96. So it is still subject to change. I will update the forecast in July based on those exact changes. So this is just what we know now. That's what's forecasted. You'll see a 1.75 wage increase. That is just, and I really want to emphasize this, that is just a placeholder, and it could be moved up or down. But I need to have a 5-year forecast that we can use to help guide us. It needs to be as close to realistic as possible. 11% is our insurance increase for fiscal year 26. That's significantly higher than what we've experienced. We have some serious catastrophic claims. Again, and I don't mean to make anyone who might be out there who's in that situation to feel bad about it, because we would all use our health insurance for our family or ourselves if in need. And unfortunately, we have some folks that are in that particular position right now, and that's significantly increasing our insurance costs. I go back down to 8% in fiscal year 27 through 29. Our advisors believe that this is an anomaly and not something that will continue. There are additional, which we're going to talk about today. There's an additional $10 million over budget for the Kenmore project. And I think it's also important to note that North is probably not far behind, and we need to get that project moving as quickly as we can. There are reductions in $10 million in permanent expenditures in fiscal year 26, and the forecast reflects $10 million more cuts in fiscal year 27. I do incorporate inflationary growth for our major categories, utilities, all those same things you experience at home. And then 10% growth on property values. That could fluctuate. We were at 20% last year. We're not anticipating it stay at that level. So, it is best guess of what will happen in terms of property growth valuations. So here's your 5-year forecast. If you focus on the bottom number, let's take a look at that ending balance across the bottom. 88 million, 80 million. We have the influx of our full collection in fiscal year 26 on our levy that passed. And then you see we go 54 million, 20 million, and we're in deficit in fiscal year 29. Obviously, we are levy eminent, and the board will have to address when that is at the board's discretion. Above in the red is telling you how much we're spending above revenue collections, and obviously it exacerbates itself over the course of time. So right here is when I believe that we would hit fiscal watch. Fiscal watch. Then, and that is or excuse me, caution. That is 7%. That 25 million, almost 26 million is 7% of our general fund. Then we go into fiscal watch, and then we go into fiscal emergency if all things stay the way they are. Clearly, we won't let that happen, but that is the challenge. And I don't want to underemphasize it, but I also want the board and community to understand, comparatively speaking, compared to the other major districts in the state of Ohio, we're in better shape than most. This is a problem that is impacting school districts, suburban, urban, across the state of Ohio, because in this forecast under House Bill 96, we're minus $44 million in state funding that we had predicted previous to that. That was part of the Fair School Funding Act, which is not being honored at this point. So you put $44 million back in this forecast, and it looks very different. So some recommendations moving forward. We're recommending that we conduct a staffing audit conducted by the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. That is free, and what it does, it will line up every job category in the district and compare those numbers to like school districts, all the way from how many administrators you have to how many custodians you have, to tutors, across the board. And that'll give us a really independent, objective view of where we stand from a staffing perspective. Request a fiscal audit by the auditor of the state, and that's different than a regular audit that Wayne addressed just a few minutes ago, and thank you for doing that, by the way, Wayne, and taking care of that and leading that charge. But this is not an audit of, are we spending our money out of the right box and into the right category, or gap funding or gap audit procedures or any of those things. That's not what it is. This is getting into how effectively we're spending our money. So it gives us a much better view of and potentially and hopefully ways to reduce spending that we're not seeing. So it's an outside party to help us do that. There is a cost associated with that, roughly about $35,000 to have that audit conducted. We know that we need to reduce staffing positions across all job codes. Reduce overtime expenditures, and we're working very hard to do that. But of course, as you reduce staff, the work doesn't get reduced. So that's a challenge when you're in a reduction, to make sure that we don't just shift it from a full-time person into overtime for everyone else. Utilize our position control process to monitor all positions. We need to, every position that comes open, we have to take a hard look at it and really make a informed choice about whether that position needs to be filled or not filled. Travel is another issue that's been out there. A lot of the travel is grant funded, but not all of the travel is grant funded, and we're going to put that through a control process to make sure that we are conducting the professional development that we need in order to be an effective school district, but at the same time reducing everywhere we can. Conduct an audit of all educational programs across the district to find out, are we getting a return on that? Is this program that we spend X amount of money, is it effective? Is it the most effective? Is it something that we believe we want to continue moving forward? Conduct a software audit, and we have, or we may have, redundant packages. If we do, let's eliminate those packages. And then a very difficult one is to study our footprint. We have 44 buildings now, 35 are CLCs, and that becomes a challenge. House Bill 110 says that if we have two schools under 60% capacity, they could be taken over by a charter. Now, in House Bill 96, they address what they would have to pay, which is significantly less than what it was previously. And House Bill 96 also is addressing what constitutes, or what is the measurement for capacity. I honestly think it's a disservice to specifically urban school districts because they have a one-size-fits-all, but the urbans typically carry more students on IEPs and more students with significant needs, and obviously just being larger causes that as well, where we might have a series of classrooms that only have 3 or 4 or 5 kids in it. They don't account for that. So that really puts the squeeze. It isn't that we're not using our school building, it's just we're not using it exactly the way the OFCC says or measures it. And that
Thank you, Dr.
concludes.
Thompson. Are there any questions from members of the committee or members of the board?
I have 2 questions.
Member Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2 questions. You recommended a staffing audit. Do we have any idea when the last staffing audit was done?
I'm not aware that there's ever been a staffing audit done.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I can't really answer that question. Deborah
Okay.
Folk probably could.
Okay. Reduce staffing across job codes. I don't see in here a hiring freeze. If we're going to reduce, is that a recommendation? Is that not feasible? Is that?
Well, in discussion with our team, the decision was that language, and that's because, let's say, for example, and it was a very good point, a student moves into the district that requires a specific type of teacher on an IEP, for example, or a student moves into a district and we have 16-to-1 ratios with our special ed teachers and moves in and puts us at 17. That's going to require the creation of a new position. So I think that's in part and parcel. And did you want to add anything to that, Mary?
Excuse me, Dr. Thompson.
Yeah, my bad.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent, would you like to add anything to that?
Dr. Thompson is accurate. Our team was discussing we have to keep certain ratios, especially with our students with disabilities. So to put a cap on it, we would be breaking the law. So we didn't want to say a freeze, but that we would analyze each position as it becomes available, or the need for positions. We would run them through this position control process to ensure it is indeed needed.
Madam Chair, can I follow up?
Member Harrison.
And I was specifically not speaking of student-teacher ratios. I'm talking about support positions. That's, you know, is that included? Because I understand legally we're obligated to provide the things that we're legally obligated to provide.
Right.
But I'm talking about support positions.
You know, when you're spending $18 million more than you're bringing in, I think that answers the question. I think it's very difficult to do, to create new positions. Now, there could be some reasons. For example, you could be at a building where we're spending more on overtime because they can't keep up, because we cut it too deep, for example, where it might be more cost effective to actually hire someone and bring someone in versus allowing or creating a situation where we can't reduce the overtime. So that would be an exception, for example.
Are there any additional questions? Member Molinar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following up on the staffing audit, I am going to ask about the fiscal audit. Do we know when the last fiscal audit was? I saw that was about, I wrote down in my notes, it's about $35,000. And then my question for each of those or both of those, are these what we would expect from the results of a state takeover? Are these the audits that would be run or have similar results, or, thank you.
Yeah. The only reason I know about them, I mean, they're very uncommon. They do occur. They do occur, and some school districts bring them in. But in a previous district where I worked, we did fall into fiscal caution and fiscal watch, and those things were required. And I found them to be pretty helpful in making decisions moving forward. So that's where I learned it, but I doubt this district has ever done either because they're not required. Now, an audit's done every single year, but it's not a fiscal audit.
Thank you. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, if I may, go back to Member Harrison as well. I would like to wait to use the terminology freeze also until after we conduct our audit, because it could help us with reorganizing our district to become more efficient. And if we put a freeze, then that would, put a freeze, and it could be counterproductive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions from any members? President Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions that I have. Who should lead these charges concerning an audit on the systems and resources we're using, software, and the other areas that you mentioned? Because I recall speaking this to you before about as far as some audits of the things that we use that we may not need to use, and how can we do like a clearinghouse, a professional audit. And so since it was never done, and now you're recommending it at this point, I'm just curious as to where should the expectation, because many of these things that you said may be required, I know that I have asked that they be done. And so I'm wondering in a meeting like this, so who's the who should be facilitating that once it's said in this meeting and the board is in agreement if these things need to be done so we can move forward in the recommendations? Is it the Treasurer Department? Where should we see this happening at? Who should be leading, like the follow-up?
Well, my recommendation is that it comes from the superintendent's office,
okay,
but the superintendent delegates that to those directors. She would delegate to me, Steve, can you lead the fiscal audit? IT, Dr. Hodo, can you, those people can lead it. It just needs to be
the follow-up. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then just to back, so the $44 million as a result of the fair school funding issue is why that we're not seeing alignment with the original forecast that stated that we should be by 2029 be somewhere about decreasing about 16 million right now instead of in a deficit.
Right.
But that was also based off 24 million in cuts, right?
Well, I had adjusted that back, of course, but the majority of those cuts would have certainly been impactful and helped us. But the major reason that it's flipped so much in 29 is because of the House Bill 96.
For that 44 million, that's
right.
missing. Okay. And then the corrective action plan you're saying is these audits, like to do some of these audits to kind of see is one of the ways we can go about.
Yeah, I think it's a first step. Okay. You get the audit back, and then you've got to use the audit and take action based on what the audit says. It's just a tool to help make difficult decisions.
Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions? Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Of course, let's just say that House Bill 96 is the state budget.
Yes, it's
That's
the state budget.
Yes. All right. Thank you. If there's no additional, Member Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. You said it would cost about $35,000.
Roughly.
This is not something that we can do in-house?
Well, I mean, we do it in-house in terms of a 5-year forecast for sure, but the advantage of an outside state auditor's office is they have a lot more resources than we do, and it's independent. So you know what they come back and say is not the opinion of Steve or Wayne or anybody else in the finance department, but rather it is subject matter experts who do this for a living. That's why I would recommend, I would almost guarantee you that the audit will more than pay for itself.
Just a follow-up, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. But, okay, so if we do the 5-year forecast, which is huge, right? That's our overall budget. And
Right.
we're competent to do it in-house. To do an audit of every single department in-house would save us from spending $35,000, right?
It could, and we have done.
Or could we, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm just looking at, because we're talking about reducing
understand.
costs, but then we're like, let's spend $35,000. So, I mean, if we were to do it in-house and maybe utilize a system that's available to us that may not cost as much,
That's understood.
Okay. Madam Superintendent, and we
I understand.
move on.
Just briefly, we would request this independent audit to be done, and we could use our Educational Service Center subsidy to cover the fee, so that what we're trying to do is be proactive. You heard that once we get to fiscal emergency, the state will come in and make the cuts for us. So we're trying to be proactive in this independent study to look at what additional cuts we could make that we may have missed, but to see from an independent view what additional reductions we can make. So we can use some funds that would not impact the general fund if it would be approved by the board.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. So what you're saying, Madam Superintendent, is that these recommendations, even though they're coming from our treasurer, that you have looked at all of these recommendations and you have discussed these recommendations with the treasurer?
Yes,
And
that
that
is
you-
correct,
and
and I
that
support these.
you-
And we thought about putting it under superintendent and treasurer recommendations, so they are from both of us.
Okay, thank you. It's good to know. Thank you. All righty, so in looking at our 5-year forecast, we also have to look at our personnel and reductions. And so, Mrs. Carter, would you make a presentation on that, please? So I don't have any of that. Thank you, ma'am. She's alive.
This is the item I shared this with you at the last finance meeting, the itemized list. There have been some modifications as it relates to some of the positions that the superintendent is recommending for a reduction in force. And so you will see 2 positions that were removed, one from technology and one from facilities as it relates to the reduction in force. Also, as it relates to the action, there's been some modifications as it relates to what's going to be happening. So for instance, if you look at the second line where it says content supervisor, basically we are going to look at reducing that position because of retirement. And we're also going to look at transferring funds to Part B for that first position there when it comes to special ed, a coordinator position. And those are basically the only changes. Oh, no, take that back. If you look down at the bottom, if you flip your page and on the back, You can see we added some additional positions. We removed the hub position, which is a STEM position that we're supposed to have. Since we have STEM schools, you have to have that hub position. So Superintendent Outley removed that position and replaced it with some administrator positions down at the bottom, if you turn your page, on the second page on the back. And one of the ways that we're going to be reducing the budget from general funds is she's going to be using some ESC funds to help with support some part-time administrators as it relates to transferring funds and to help with the budget savings. And those were the only changes from the last time.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Any questions from the committee and/or members of the board? President Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll be brief. Just for the teaching and learning, the content supervisor, what was the terminology you used for that position? What is happening with that?
Oh, the person is retiring.
Yeah, right.
And so that's just a saving in itself. But at first, we had there that we're going to be moving we're going to be covering some of that cost. The number increased. And the reason why it increased is because a portion of that is going to be covered by a different account, which is the ESC funds. Because I'm trying to explain this.
Because I see, if I'm just someone, so I think I'm understanding with the special education coordinator that you're transferring funds from Part B. So I'm
Right.
clear on that to help.
Yes.
To mitigate that.
Yes.
But this retirement, I thought you used the term that it's going to be a savings because the person was no longer going to be in that role.
Correct. She's not going to be in that role.
And so when it's a saving, then does that mean it gets removed from the budget if we're already looking at a deficit?
Yes. So it was
totally removed?
Correct. It was 86,000, but we were able to find additional funds to cover a project that's going to be happening when she comes back. And so 12,000 was added on to this to bump it up to 98,000 because we don't need to use general fund to cover this special project that's going to be happening. So that number actually went up from 86 to 98.
Okay, so, all right. So it's still going to be, that's what I'm saying.
It's still a savings. I was just saying it's going to look different from the other
But it's still in our
page.
budget is what I'm asking.
No.
All right, that's what
It's not in our general fund budget, but it's going to be in this amount of money right here. The retirement takes care of that.
Yeah, she's retired, so it's out of our budget.
Correct.
That's what I'm at. So I'm saying, if it's a budget, I was paying this fee, I'm no longer going to pay this fee. So I'm saying I'm removing it completely out
Yes.
of the budget. That is not being accounted for, not saved for another position later to be
Correct.
reallocated. It's moved.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to know that. And I want to go back to, I know you heard me when I asked the treasurer, because originally it said that when we were doing our 5-year forecast that we had $24 million in planned reductions. So now when we come with these reductions, one of the things too at that time, it was saying we had resource allocation, that we were focusing on resource allocation in some type of capacity, and that we were prioritizing instructional services with that reallocation. So I wanted to say that because with I see the transfer of funds with the special education coordinator, and I'm just wanting to clarify that that's one position?
Yes.
Okay, and so for the other, because I know we were talking about some other RIFs, and I'm just trying to see where would that be reflected in this?
Like which other?
When we were talking about the special ed cuts,
So
have we...
There are.
To corrective action with
Are you referring to the second section under college and career academies?
Oh, yeah, that would be where it says special education, yes.
So, no, I'm talking about where it says division academics, and then department CCAA. Those two positions are intervention specialist positions. Are you referring to that?
Yeah, under there where it says academic special education division department, it has $572,000. And then under it says building closure. You see, it's like on the first page.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And it has 4 teachers, 4 paraprofessionals.
Yes.
I'm asking because even though there's the building closures, the students still go somewhere. I'm just trying to see how
Yes,
can I
they do.
visualize where these bodies are going, since I know we're short already paraprofessionals. That's my question. Like,
Right.
where are they being reassigned? Are they being
moved.
cut?
Nobody's
says
being,
RIF.
nobody's being, nobody's being cut. The building was closed, and so they're being reassigned to other places.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why is because we had openings, and we had some ELP classes that had substitute teachers.
That's what I want to answer. Yes, because in our last meeting when we were talking about this, and it was a deficit, and we were talking about cutting. So I think with the building closure, it's important to see that they're going to have positioning. And you answered my question. Thank you, Ms. Carter.
Thank you, Member Hall. Did she answer?
Madam Chair, yes. Yeah, because it was about the special education teachers, so
Member
thank you.
Harris.
I'm just curious because I'm getting a little confused. So when we look at this, some of these positions that show a dollar amount, we're actually not realizing that dollar amount off the budget. It's being transferred to another fund. So these are off the budget.
Off the general fund budget.
Yes, off the general fund, but they're not going to any other budget, I guess is what I'm asking.
Some will be transferred.
Madam Superintendent.
An example, and we may need Deborah Falk to come up, but an example is under the division Business Affairs, there's another department that has funds that are not out of the general fund. So she's going to absorb that cost for us for 1 year to cover this position. So if it doesn't, so that's what that transfer of fund means. It's going to child nutrition that has their own funds. They are not part of our general fund. So they're picking up the cost. That $97,000 is leaving the general fund, and it's going to the child nutrition line item. That's their own funding source. They're their own funding source. Does that make sense? The other ones, if you do not see a transfer, that means it's coming direct, it's a savings to the general fund.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Mrs. Carter, any additional questions? All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to now the Middle South Piper. Oh, I'm sorry.
One of our signups was on this topic.
Do we have a sign up on the topic? Yes.
Is this Kathleen Durkin? Yes.
Yes. Thank you and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Kathleen Durkin, and I serve as the district's lead consulting teacher. I want to discuss with you the district's contractual peer assistance and review program. It's a program built around mentoring, developed by the state and adopted by Akron Public Schools 13 years ago. It might just save us some money. This program was designed as an essential addition for mentoring and supporting new teachers throughout their crucial first year in the district and has been overwhelmingly successful. As we know, teaching is not just a job, it is a calling. Yet for many new teachers, the first year can be overwhelming. They often face challenges that can lead to burnout and ultimately choose to leave the profession. This is where the Peer Assistance and Review Program comes in. By providing the mentorship and support, we can ensure our new teachers have the tools, guidance, and confidence they need to thrive. While this program is an investment in the district, I urge you to consider the long-term implications of not investing in our new teachers. Almost every board meeting, you are seeing numerous educators resign or retire from the district. The financial losses are accumulating dramatically. On average, it costs the district between $20,000 and $30,000 for each teacher that departs. This figure represents not just the financial investment for every teacher who departs. This represents their training, but also the cost associated with recruiting and onboarding every new hire. We currently have 120 vacancies across the district. We need to examine this issue closely. Imagine how our resources could be better utilized if we focused on supporting retention. Instead, if we focused on supporting instead of replacing teachers. By honoring the peer assistance and review program, we can diminish turnover rates. Research shows that new teachers are more likely to stay in their positions with effective mentoring. A supportive environment fosters satisfaction and growth, leading to stronger, more stable workforce. Just as important, we must consider our students. Each time a teacher leaves, especially in an urban district, the impact on students is profound. Studies indicate that when a replacement or underqualified teacher leaves the classroom.
You can finish your statement. You can finish your sentence, but, but just no.
Every time a student is left, this is a profound impact on their education, leading up to a loss of 32 to 72 days of instruction.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. So now we're going to ask Dr. Thompson and Madam Superintendent if you would give us the presentation on Miller South and Pfeiffer building project update, please.
Madam Chair, I would request Steve Keenan join me, if that's okay. Okay, I'm not advancing.
So is the presentation by the superintendent and the treasurer?
Well, okay. Well, I would like to say that I'm forwarding this. There we go. Okay, so as we stated earlier, we know that the Miller South Pfeiffer project is roughly $10 million over budget. You've heard different numbers. You've heard 13. You've heard different numbers. So I want to make sure that we clarify that. But we also wanted to present some options, and we have 3 options or recommendations. That certainly doesn't mean you're obligated as a board to any one of the 3. And it doesn't mean there aren't better ones out there, but this is what we have put together. One is to simply construct the Miller South and Pfeiffer project as planned. That's an option for sure. Current funding for Miller South and Pfeiffer, I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. So in 2023, the budget was put together by our architects at $63 million. That included $40 million of COPS, certificates of participation. That's a low-interest loan that we're paying on right now. And we have those $40 million on hand. $15 million in ESSER. We did move $30 million of ESSER into the general fund, earmarking $15 million for the project. The other $15 million is in the general fund, has been absorbed by the general fund. And then $8 million an LFI money, locally funded initiative. This was dollars that the OFCC projects, all the CLCs, you can only, when you're working with the state, you can only do so many things to a building. So if you want a theater, for example, the state won't pay for that. So that's why you have LFI money that helps offset some of those things that you want or that you may even need, but was not funded by the state. So currently at that point, as Ms. Boyce referenced, those dollars were at about $16 million. And our early conversation with the previous mayor was those dollars would be split. The current estimated projected budget has changed and grown to $76 million. So there's your $13 million increase. So why am I saying $10 million shortfall? There's $42 million in COPS now from our investments. Now what we have to watch is arbitrage. So we're going to need to begin to start spending those COPS dollars to prevent arbitrage, which is basically a fine to prevent a school district or a public entity from going out and taking out a low interest loan, investing it, and making money off of it. That's not what they want to occur. $15 million in ESSER. The LFI dollars are now at $18 million. Obviously, if we were to get the whole amount, that would change the outlook of this budget. But as it stands right now, I'm only budgeting for half that amount. So that would mean $10 million would have to come from the general fund to construct the project as is. So we wanted to give you some options as well. Construct the Miller South and redistrict Pfeiffer students to existing CLCs, which would be a closure of Pfeiffer but not replacement of Pfeiffer. So the estimated project savings, and you got to kind of bear with me through this on this one, is about $15 million savings on the overall project. So what we're looking at right now, whoops. I don't know what just happened. Okay, I think I'm okay. Okay. So currently there are 189 students enrolled in Pfeiffer. You can see the capacity and the utilization rates of Sam Salem, Reimer, and Mickey Bright. So right there is Pfeiffer. You can see the red circle. Sam Salem, Reimer, and Mickey Bright. So those students in this plan would be redistricted to those schools. Now what I have requested and still have not yet received, but we should have this week, is a scattergram of where are these kids and where would they go and what would that do to capacity of Sam Salem, Reimer, and Mickey Bright. Ms. Outley and I have had conversations. We're aware that there could potentially be a need to move programming. That's a possibility, so that we could make sure we stay under capacity for those buildings. What you're looking at right now, and I'll be very brief with this, but it is a rendering of what the Miller South building would look like on the Kenmore campus. The view on the right is the first floor, and the view on the left is the second floor, with a lot of those academic pieces coming on the second floor. Second option to consider. Well, I'm sorry. Second option budget-wise. $63 million was the budget. $42 million in COPS. $12 million in ESSER. I highlight that because the original budget was $15 million, $9 million in LFI. So that's a general fund savings of $3 million. It's a $15 million savings on the project, but going back to the general fund would only be $3 million. A third option, Miller South relocated to Litchfield. This requires an addition to Litchfield. I know they walked Litchfield today. to get a cursory understanding of that, and I'll turn that over to Mary if you want to address that, your walkthrough.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I'm sorry.
Have you finished your presentation?
Yes. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So this requires an addition to Litchfield and would redistrict the Pfeiffer students. And current funding for this project, the 23 budget, I'm going to get this right one of these soon, is $63 million, $40 million in COPS, $15 million in ESSER, $8 million in LFI funds. The proposed Litchfield addition, and this could vary because we need to find out what would need to be constructed. We know there's a gap there of certainly capacity-wise can take more students. We know that, but to the extent, I'm not 100% sure at this point. $45 million would be the budget for this build. That would be $42 million in COPS, $3 million in ESSER money, and of that $45 million, $5 million of it is demo of other sites. So your build budget's $40 million, $5 million for demo. So what does that budget look like? $45 million would put $21 million back in general fund savings if we were to do this project.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Madam Superintendent.
I believe this may also be the time we wanted to talk about the north.
Yeah.
I believe that's why Mr. Keenan was requested to come up, but I have some information I would like to share with the board in addition, so we can finish out this piece, and then I can give you an update also that will impact the 5-year forecast based on a change in our north dynamics. There was not a slide prepared for that.
So not to confuse the issue, I would rather that we
Go through this.
go through
I agree.
what's happening, yes.
I agree.
With Miller South, yes.
Yeah, that's the conclusion.
Then that's the conclusion.
So
There's
just-
3 options that we would like to present. One, the first option is as is, move forth with the building of both Miller South and Pfeiffer on the Kenmore campus, or move forth with the building project with just a focus on Miller South on the Kenmore campus, or moving the the Miller South build to Litchfield. Those are the 3 options that we're presenting today for your consideration, and then we can field any questions you have and then come back to the full board meeting to field any additional questions.
Okay. Are there any questions from board members or members of the committee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have a question. I just want to make a statement that
Not too long.
not too long. The 3 options are options that we are seeing for the first time, so it's really hard to digest or ingest these options.
Okay. President Jackson?
Yes, so in the third option was to move Miller South to Litchfield. What does that do for the Pfeiffer? What?
There would be no build for Pfeiffer.
Okay, thank
So
you.
2 options involve no building for a Pfeiffer, option 2 and 3.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? No additional questions. Thank you. So we have a number of individuals here in the audience that want to make statements as it relates to this presentation. Member Molinar?
I believe
Is it Robert?
I'll call all 3 names, and I don't know if all 3 names are for this item or for other upcoming
Okay.
items, but the 3 names that we have are Brandy Vickers, Andrea Morton, and Robert Lyons.
Okay. You do not want to make any statements. Yours on the next one. Okay, thank you. All right, so if there's no additional questions, I would also just kind of say to the audience as a whole that this is our first time as a board hearing the recommendation from the administration. So we will continue to review, get feedback from the community, of course, before I think we can make any statements one way or the other. All righty, we will move on to the resolution for the bond.
So this is a resolution for the bond. It's approval of $30 million in bond anticipation notes or ban. This is dollars for the North project. These are voted dollars. But we need to sell those bonds, and on July 7th and 8th would be a public offering for those bonds. July 23rd, the pricing would be set on the sale of those bonds, and then August 13th, we would receive those funding. So obviously, you understand the need to move these projects and move them as quickly as we possibly can, and this will give us the resources to begin doing just that. So there is a resolution that the board has to approve at the next board meeting in order to execute this.
Okay, any questions from the committee or members of the board? Member Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When we talk about selling bonds, we have to buy those bonds back, right, eventually? Or we're just completely selling the bonds and getting the funding?
We make it essentially works just like a bank, except instead of a bank loaning us the money, a whole large group of investors are investing their dollars, and they're buying it at a certain interest rate. So they might buy X number of bonds for 3.5%. So during the course of this, us paying this back over the course of 35 years, they're making 3.5% on their investment. So so we will get a set dollar amount that we have to pay, like a mortgage payment, every year until this debt is paid in full.
Yes.
So when we sell these bonds, are we getting enough money to just do North, or are you getting enough money to help sustain our district and all as a
No,
whole?
this is strictly for North High School, nothing else.
Okay.
Can't be used for anything else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions, committee and members of the board? Thank you. So the recommendation you're making that we move this on to the regular agenda for Monday's board
Yes,
meeting?
ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Thompson. All right, next up is transportation building improvements.
Good evening, Chairman, Co-Chairman, members of the Board, Superintendent. I am here to present a proposition that is to improve the building improvements for the transportation complex. A quick history about this particular location. We obtained this property from Summit County in 1931. The current buildings on this property were built in 1965, so therefore these particular buildings are 60 years old. And we have certainly tried to maintain them over those past several years. We've had effects of the Route 8 bridge project that came to notice in 2019, and we have had to adjust this property for the transportation complex between 2020 and 22, and now we need some additional support for 2025. The first part of the phase one is we replaced the fuel tank upgrades because we had below ground tanks. They could no longer be grounded underneath because they were not buster compliant with the EPA. The second part was done. We removed this old storage barn. Several of you may remember we had one horse barn there from 1931, and the dog pound, which reverted to us after Summit County left the property in order to realign the bus parking. Phase 3 was the construction of the new storage barn, which went from the 500 East North Street property, which is transportation. It's now located behind the distribution complex at 550, and the agreement was with ODOT related to the bridge. This includes an actual piece of property that they now have purchased from us, and we hold up one of the main stanchions on the west side. So it it really did seek to alter the property. We are seeking to approve, and we currently have the funding in the transportation complex to service the man doors, the overhead garage doors, the building windows, the masonry block repair, replacement of concrete, and frost slabs. I have included, just so that for some of you who may not be down there or have ever visited, exactly where the bridge is located, exactly to this property. As you can see, the first one is to show you the above-ground tanks and the bridge behind it. The second picture to the right is the bus bays that keep the orthopedic buses housed. The rest on the lower left are the bay doors for all the services and maintenance areas. We park currently 30 buses of our fleet inside the building. And then again, we gave you another location. If you will notice in the, hang on a minute. I love this thing. Let's go here. There we go. This is the condition of the man doors that are overhead doors. These rails are original to the building. They are now 60 years old. These are the doors that the buses go in and out of every day. These also include structural content that is no longer actually stable. And we had these doors evaluated under a recent evaluation. They are not only not compatible, we have motors that are leaking oil. We have motors that do not operate correctly to take these up and down. We have several original building windows that have asbestos caulking that should be removed. And we are asking to move this forward to help support this. I did want to advise the board that transportation support from ODU does come into the transportation department through the state foundation that you get, regular student transport and special ed transport. I provided you the funding we received in '24 for regular ed and currently to 25 up to April 18th, as well as special ed. So we do bring in money. It does not cover the whole operation, but the state does do some funding. And as this is a mandated requirement that we transport, we should consider keeping our assets safe, secure, and maintained in the proper manner. And I would like consideration to put this recommendation from you towards the meeting on the 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from committee members or members of the board? Member Mohanar.
Thank you. So you said the recommendation is coming on the meeting on the 27th. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through the slides here. And by the way, I appreciate all of these publicly available slides. Mm-hmm. Is the cost on slide number?
The cost was not, I apologized. The cost is $452,000. So we already had put into the budget $200,000 for bridge improvement or building improvements. We were able to save an additional $260,000 on the bus radio repairs that went in this year. So there is currently FY25 funding available to cover the cost of this project in the budget for the transportation department.
Member Hall.
I'm sorry, that just confused me there. Okay, so for this whole entire project is $452,000.
Yes.
You have $2,000 for the bridge improvement already secured somewhere.
I have $200,000 in the building improvement funding line in transportation.
So
we saved $260,000 out of the bus replacement radio that was planned. It came in much lower than anticipated for FY25.
Okay, so how much are you asking the board to approve?
The recommendation included in the May 27th meeting is $452,000 coming out of the already existing FY25 budget.
Okay.
To hopefully repair. The other part that I would like to update you on is also we have been advised by ODOT The bridge replacement will go into its next phase in December. It will be the implosion of the bridge, which will actually bring it down through an implosion process, and they will be monitoring the property for seismic activity all the way through. And since some of these particular items are now original to the building, we can't repair them, we can't get parts, so to do the repair, we would be able to have new parts and have them under warranty should something occur.
Member Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess this is more to, I'm not sure how we save money when we don't have money, but the issue of bringing a project to us and asking us to approve it at the next board meeting, I just don't think is feasible. So there's a lot of questions on this. So
I do understand that. I was asked to look, and I did do this review, if it could be taken apart in sections and do only a certain part at a time. It will only come in more expensive doing it that way. And we wanted just to make sure that we could align it with the update to the implosion of the bridge going into effect in December of '25. And we did not get that notification until recently that that's the planned date. So it did take us time to look these over, to get them scrutinized as to what would occur, and this is the time in which we could gather the information to make the construction repairs that are needed to a building that is 60 years old. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Madam Superintendent, did you want to add something?
I did. I also had some questions for Mrs. Falk, and that's why I asked her to bring the presentation here. So the only other thing is, if we delay the project, it will have to get done. And sort of like the building project, the longer we wait, the more expensive the project will become. So right now it's at
$452,000.
And so we can, and it's fine for the board to delay the project, but there are things that will break, that have broken, that will need to be replaced. And it's just a matter of when will we do it. And if we do it in parts and pieces, again, it'll cost a little bit more than what's being proposed right now. Just wanted to make sure you understood that.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions, comments? President Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a clarifying question that I have. I understand that you stated it will be $452,000 for repairs. You also stated that we had $200,000 that's already from a building repair project that's identified for this.
We have a building improvement funding line in transportation that was funded at $200,000 for FY25.
That can be applied towards this.
Yes,
is what I thought I heard.
That
you
is
say.
correct.
Okay, so I'm thinking when I hear you say that then I can subtract $200,000 from your $452,000 ask. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct, and the resulting $252,000 was in a funding line in the transportation budget for bus radio replacement. It came in under cost, and we currently have unencumbered funds, $260,000 in that FY25 line, which could be allocated to the building improvement line to allow this to move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Falk. I'd just like to ask my questions in steps.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And so I understand from the $452,000, we can subtract the $200,000. And then my next question is what you asked about, what you just mentioned, about a saving from another transportation project of about $260,000.
Yes, ma'am.
$260,000.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm unclear as to follow up on Member Hall's question when she asks, what then is your ask for the board's approval? Is it coming before the board to ask that money be moved from these other funds to be used for this project? That's where I'm unclear on.
The request was to have a business affairs recommendation for the vendor that is the winning bidder to be engaged and approved to do this project, with the purchase order to be taken out of the FY25 budget in transportation.
Okay, for those two.
Those two lines,
okay,
yes.
Great. And then Madam Chair, lastly.
Yes.
How many estimates did we receive for the work?
We actually got 3, and which is your board's policy is a minimum of 3. And this is a buying group that we belong to, and those 3 walked every part of the building, and this is the least cost and most cost-effective for the replacement that we're requesting.
Thank you, Ms. Fogg. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. Member Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one quick question. You showed pictures about the doors and things like that are 60 years old
Yeah.
because you park some of the buses inside the building.
Yes.
If we could not vote on this, is it an issue or a problem parking the buses outside?
We already have, of your fleet, 30 are parked inside, and the rest are parked outside already. So,
Right, so the additional fleet that's inside, could that come outside?
it is not necessary. You really want your orthopedic buses to be inside because of the types of apparatuses they have for wheelchair students getting in and out. And as many buses that we can park inside make it easier for them to be serviced and gone out and when they're parked overnight, because we really don't have enough property to park every bus outside. That's why we've been making these renovations as this bridge project move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. One final question here. I
Yes,
see under the presentation that Mrs. Carter made that there are some recommendations for layoffs under business affairs. Are you saying that none of these funds could be used to save a job?
To save which?
A job.
We saved I see what you're saying. These funds were allocated, otherwise transportation doesn't have any offerings of jobs at this point because we need the number of people that we employ to transport our students.
But do you have any recommended layoffs in your department?
We had the warehouseman that was in the purchasing department, and it's already been reallocated and will be the person that is working now in the child nutrition, and it will come out of 006 and not 001. And those were the amount of people that we had already taken because we have right-sized all of these departments over a number of years as it was taken down. As an example, the warehouse used to have 12 people in it. It now has 5. Child Nutrition's office is down to 1 account clerk, and different things that happen depending on those departments. We do have another one coming out should the RFI go through, and that is the supervisor for property management,
Yes, yeah.
and that one will not be replaced.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments? Okay, thank you. So we want to move on to transportation van drivers contract.
Yes, I have an update on this RFP that everybody knows has been on the street. We issued the RFP as noticed to the board on the 25th of March. We had vendor responses due on April the 4th. We were very fortunate. We had 18 vendor responses. 16 were determined to be correct responses. We had 2 alternate proposals. The first round of review of all these responses occurred with the internal team on April 21st. The APS team then reviewed the additional information that was needed that we sought that vendors needed to provide on April 25th, and that second review came on May 1st. We narrowed those down to an 8 top listing, and those third 8 were reviewed again after their last question that came in. And we had a 100-point scale that we developed with legal counsel. 60 points was price. 15 points, up to 15 points were the number of vehicles in use by each vendor. Up to 15 points was the experience of fleets of at least 10 vans or drivers. The inclusion of driver compliance programs could earn up to 5, and conduct and performance on previous contracts was up to 5, and we also checked the references to see if the vendors had done school transport as noted in their response. We currently have these 8 top vendors that we have done by ranking, from 1 to 8, as noted on the slide. And we have Smart Ride Global, Emmanuel Ventures, Divine Investment, Templeton Transportation, Buckeye Logistics and Transit LLC, UTC Transit LLC, FM Transportation LLC, and Collaborative Student Transportation. We wanted to remind everybody that we do approximately 1,400 students using a contracted student support transport. APS could need travel support for a number of vendors that will be consolidated to service these students by cluster, and this consolidation transport into areas would be easily allowed to assist with time of travel of students. Cluster assignments, should this go forward, would be determined by the Transportation Services Department once they are reviewed by residential location, because these are usually home pickups and home stops. So we are requesting at the meeting of the 27th a resolution to authorize us to seek offering service contracts to, the 8 vendors listed as ranked as a response to this RFP. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee or members of the board? Member Harris.
When we're looking at the vendor response,
Yes.
Let me just say, we do have a number of individuals that's here to speak on this particular item. So I think before the board members, let's ask the public.
Thank you.
For their comments. So Brandy Vickers. Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Vickers.
Computer. I think I messed your presentation.
Okay.
I guess, well, my first question would be what I would like to know in the bidding process, what is considered to be responsive? Because if her presentation says that we're transporting 1,400 students, a vendor with 10 vans is not effective. And I am a vendor. My company is offering 118 vans. 118 vans. Each van driver servicing 12 students a day is servicing 1,418 students. So I'm under the impression, or I guess I'm confused as to why we would need 8 vendors. This administration, when they spoke with you all last year, it was about recommendations, mandates, and that they wanted to cut one check, that it was too much manpower and transportation, and in the treasurer's office, it was taking 80 hours. So in my opinion, 8 vendors is still kind of doing the same thing, because they're still going to require to be checking student attendance, which is still going to be time consuming, from 8 vendors. And again, we are the van drivers. We were all told in front of all of you guys that it was, the ICOs, the van drivers, were under APS's umbrella. It was a liability issue. We worked very hard over the past year to become compliant through the state and give APS everything that they required from us. And we feel like if you do use the 8 vendors, then that's this board's choice, but my request would be that Buckeye Logistics and Transit be primary, because we are the van drivers. We have supported APS for over 50 years, and we deserve to hold that contract. Again, it was a lot of things said about, decreasing staffing hours, supply drivers, background checks, state mandated physicals, van certifications, input and maintenance of the drivers. We are prepared to do all of this. We have worked very hard, and we just want the van drivers to maintain their position with APS.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Next speaker is Andrea Morton.
Can you go first, please? Is that okay?
Sure.
Robert Lyons.
We aim to please.
In October, almost 2 years ago, we came down here to fight for our jobs. The board was enlightened by what our van drivers do. An RFP was put forth. We took care of all the requirements that the administration the board asked us to do. We have a company. I don't have the company. Brandy and her partners have the company, but I will work for them, just as I have for 11 years for Akron Public Schools. We are qualified, quantified on every level, on everything that all you guys, as a board and as an administration, asked us to do. You told us you wanted to cut one check. You told us that it was 80 hours to do the payroll. This company is in position to almost eliminate the van driving transportation part of the transportation for Akron Public Schools. The kids don't even have to go through transportation now. They can go straight to Buckeye Logistics. And they'll be accountable for the kids. Since it was such a problem over all the years to process our pay and to deal with us, and the only time we've ever came down here is to fight for our jobs. When you wanted a levy passed, we got behind you. And as a taxpayer, we pay it. We're going to probably get behind the next levy. And if I don't know if Mr. Thompson remembers, but I told you double the levy. Because the math adds up. We're steady cutting, we're not improving. Buckeye Logistics improves van transportation, and that's what you asked for. That's what we got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Morton?
Hello, please excuse my voice. I sound terrible. I didn't want to speak today. So looking at what Ms. Folk posted, first off, there is no need, there's never a need for 8 vendors. I think that's absurd. I think that it's a direct attempt to shut down Buckeye Logistics and Transit because they know that we are the strongest bid. I would like to see the scoring. I don't know if that's something that we could do, but how do we know that the scoring is not biased when the same people that fought against us losing our jobs last year is in direct control of the bidding process? I'm not going to say any names. They're giving our work away. And I don't think that's fair. We've served this community for way too long for them to go against exactly what they asked us to do, which was start a company. If the other, there's how many ahead of us? 5 vendors are ahead of us in price. Well, it's because they released the bid to the public. They released the last vendor's bid last year that they fought for to the public. So of course everyone's going to come in lower. But in reality, we know you get what you pay for, right? We want to pay our drivers fair wages, which is going to make them stick around and do what they've been doing for 50 plus years. So it's not, it doesn't make sense to go with this company because, oh, you know, they're coming in at $150. I'm just using random numbers. I don't know. But I think that I'm not understanding what the fight is. Like, why go against the van drivers? For what? We've been doing this. So why would anyone ever, how could they rank higher than us? So I would like somebody to look into that if possible. And Ms. Folk said herself last year, it has nothing to do with numbers. Just because you're the lowest does not make you the best. That's on record. So I guess in closing, what I'm saying, God, I sound terrible. Buckeye Logistics and Transit is built from van drivers for van drivers. The same drivers that's been getting these kids. We can't rely on a company that we don't even know. I don't see some of these names on the street right now, and I'm all over the city. I'm in Cuyahoga Falls, I'm in Canton, I'm in Greene. I don't see these names out here in the streets transporting these kids. What I do see is all of our van drivers transporting these kids. Why should it change? That's it.
Thank you. We appreciate your participation. If there's no other speakers, we will now go to the board members' event information. If there's no questions or comments on that. Oh, I'm sorry, Pastor Harris.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. Ms. Folk, when we look at the bids, we have 8 vendors.
Yes.
If I'm rated number 1, and
Excuse me, would you mind putting those vendors back up?
Yep.
Thank you.
okay, so yes, and I'll just use their names, and I'm not sure if you know how many transport vehicles they had. When the RFP went out and the person put the number of vehicles they had, is that the number they're locked in at?
We asked them for the number of vehicles they had available for APS to work with. I will tell you that the 4 companies either came equal to or less in price per route.
Okay, I don't want to
And so
talk about-
therefore, you are correct. These are
Folk.
all different numbers.
Okay, hang on. So if number 1 has 8 vans, are they locked in to 8 vans, or do they go, okay, I got 8 vans today, I got the contract, I can get as many other vans as I want?
They had to have a minimum of 10 in order to submit an RFP. They notified us that they had, in a response, a higher number of vans than the minimum.
Okay, so
So those lock them into us.
let me just try this again.
Okay.
If I have 10 vans, and that's what I put on my paper, am I locked in at 10 vans to transport, or can I go 40 vans now?
You could go to 40 vans now. You told us you had at least 10 to bid. You could increase that if we're allowed to offer you a service contract.
So did we look for, we rated 8 vendors, and so again, least cost, most responsive. That was the 2-pronged test?
That was 60 points was the least cost. The other responses, if you give me a minute, included the number, you could earn up to 15 points for the number of vans.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Okay. No,
So the least cost was 60 points out of the 100.
The 2-pronged test is least cost.
Yes.
Most responsive.
Most responsive, yes.
Okay, and so I guess what I would ask is, if I had the Buckeye Logistics say they have 118 vans, if Emmanuel Ventures had 30 vans, would they be more responsive with less vans?
If you're looking to travel about 1,400 students with a full van being 7, and not every van can take 7. Elementaries can only take 6 because you do not transport a student in the front seat. You need approximately 200 vans to do the service for 1,400 students, and that's what we're trying to build those numbers on, approximately 200 vans.
Okay.
Thank you.
Member
Harris.
Harris.
No, I got it.
Member Hall, yes.
Okay, so are we thinking of taking, you're not taking all 8 vendors, correct?
We're just asking for authorization to enter into service agreements for those that we need the amount of vans for.
Okay, so you have it ranked.
Yes.
So say the top 3. All together, I think Ms. Victor, she gave the amount, but how many vans do the top 3 have altogether? Because the only company, from what I'm hearing, number 5, has the most vans in one company?
It had the largest response, but of the top 4 above them for equal to or lesser price, it was 120.
So the top 3 companies?
No, the top 4.
The top 4 have?
Would be 120.
The top 4 would be 120. But one company has, what was it, 118?
And we're looking for approximately 200. So we are also looking at price, and the price ranges are important when you're trying to save cost.
And how many people, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, how many people reviewed this ranking?
It included Mrs. Carter, it included Ms. Chapman, Dr. Chapman, I should say. It included myself, Mr. Leonard, our purchasing agent, our transportation coordinator, Justin Miller, and it also included legal counsel.
Okay, no one from finance? Okay, thank you.
Yes, Member Molinar.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. I see in the rankings, I know we're going back and forth on the slides. I see in the rankings that there was 60 points for price.
Yes.
And then 15 points for the number of van vehicles in use.
Yes.
So can you help, because this appears to be a lot of where the conversation is growing from, can you help me to understand why the number of vehicles in use per company is so critical?
It is critical because we need to be able to assign the students, and when we get them from SPED or McKinney-Vento departments, we need to try and get them transported and assigned as quickly as possible. So therefore, if you have a good number of fleet from a number of vendors in this case, we can go ahead and put those students in, say, the North Cluster to the vendors assigned to the North Cluster, knowing that they will have enough capacity to do that. I will advise you in this process, we also reached out to several of our other urban districts. As an example, Cleveland Met uses 57 different companies. So we were ranking them according to what we needed. That doesn't mean that all companies even offered a service contract will engage us. We just wanted to narrow our 18 down to the 8 most appropriate.
Yes, Member Molinar.
I have one, possibly two follow-ups if time permits. But so for number of van vehicles in use, I see it's 0 to 15 points. So am I to assume that the more vehicles you have, the more points you
That
would
is
get?
correct. If the more vehicles you had, you got the 15 points.
Okay, and then can I also help to understand, because this is the first time I've ever seen this slide or had this
Yes.
conversation. If these are the two most important things, for me, it feels like one is 60 points, one is 15 points. Can you kind of help me to understand?
Price is, according to the revised code, the most important thing when you're looking at the cost of trying to make a decision. Some people do say it's the lowest cost. It's really the lowest, most responsible cost. And we had a range. Our current cost this year ranges from within the same range we're getting next year. So we had some vendors that truly would not be within the range we were willing to pay that are not on this list of 8 that we're thinking to at least ask for authorization to offer a contract to.
Member Harrison. Member Harrison, are you going to conduct the meeting?
I was looking. Ms. Folk, this doesn't feel right now, and that's why we ask to have this to us so that we can work all of this before we got into a meeting and discuss this. Again,
would you like to have, this is just my suggestion.
No, I'm just saying we're here where we are now.
Okay.
So just please let me, just entertain me here.
Okay.
When we ask for information from a board, we're asked to make decisions, and we don't have the information to make the decisions when we need the information to make the decision, because some of this stuff just does not make sense. And I would just ask that whenever we're back where we were, the kids, we need to have the contracts. We're back where we were 2 years ago. Please just please provide us with adequate information in time so that we can work these things out, because this doesn't make sense to me.
The additional information that may be appropriately given is attached to the authorization resolution that is part of the meeting of the 27th of May. So we do have some additional
Which you want us, that's the meeting you want us to vote?
I want you to consider if that's what you would like to move forward with.
Thank you. Member Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple quick questions. So are these the top 5 vendors, are they Akron-based companies?
I can tell you that 4 of them are, 1 is not.
So your top three, are all of those Akron companies?
Actually, I can't, I'm going to tell you, I know the number one is not. But I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at the addresses.
And
but
then-
actually, you have other ones below number 5 that are also Akron.
Okay. So I'm just confused why we would make one company that's not even Akron-based, the number one. And then back to Member Molinar, 60 points is the best cost or the lowest cost. But if we want adequate drivers, making sure that our kids are safe, why would price be way up high and everything else is so low?
It's just the way that it is scored in response to the RFP because we also have a budget constraint that we're trying to work with.
Right, and I understand RFPs because we create them, right?
Yes,
we say
that is
what we
correct.
want. I've written a lot of them, so. But we didn't have to put 60 points so high up. We chose to, correct?
That was recommendation from our legal counsel. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Member Autry. Before President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm sure you probably said this in your presentation, but I just need you to make it very simple for lay people like myself. Why are we now having 8 vendors?
We were looking to make sure that if we offered a contract of service agreement, that we would have at least enough to come up with 200 vans. And not everybody had a response that could meet that need.
So in this current school year, we're working with how many?
Right now, you have currently 108 independent contracted van drivers, and Templeton is doing 54 different routes. So that is close to exactly what they have.
So we have Templeton right now currently.
Yes, that was the support
and
the board approved in the
ICOs.
ICOs.
So essentially 2, and now we're going to 8.
Well, this was just a response to the RFP. We were trying to make sure that we met the RFP response for cost within the budget, as long and to look exactly what we could do to rank them according to the cost and the responses to the areas in which we were evaluating them.
That's a lot of words, but it just,
Yeah, I understand.
2 to 8, it doesn't.
Okay.
I'm trying.
I understand.
Wrap
Thank
my
you.
head around that. Thank
We
you.
were trying to meet the needs of the proposed amount of students that we could transport, which is 1,400 approximately.
Right, I understand that. It just seemed like we would have been significantly short this school year.
You are significantly delayed in getting some students transported to all the items that they need. That's why we were going back to try and do the 1,400 in a 7-passenger van with the understanding that elementaries cannot do anything higher than a 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Autry. President Jackson, did you have something you want to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, so to Member Hall's question, because I was looking up when I saw the names just to see the location, because I was curious too, because I think we're in Akron, it's good for us to support local businesses. And so SmartWise, and I'm just looking for who their agent or their person of contact is. So we have Columbus, Ohio, Parma Heights, Ohio, Gates Mill, Ohio, Euclid, Ohio, and I'm starting from the top down.
And that's their offices.
Yeah, that's their, right, exactly. And then, so their authorized agent, they're contacting their offices. None are showing locally present. That doesn't mean that they can't operate from here, but I'm showing where they're showing their locations are at, just because as I was looking at them, I was just researching, so I know I could answer what you were asking. And so I think I agree with what all other board members said as far as the information from all departments when we have committee meetings be made available in enough time for board members to digest it, whatever the meeting is when it comes here, that enough time is spent with whatever's going to be asked on the agenda, so that we can kind of wrestle with the information, go through it, process it with fidelity before we come here. So I'm in agreement with what Member Harrison said, and like I said before, with the other contracts, whether it's snow plowing, whether it's leaf blowing, I think if we have local people that will pay into our local economy in the city of Akron and surrounding areas from a tax-paying base, I would like to support local industry within our city, state also, but definitely within our city. Thank you.
Thank you, President Jackson, for giving us that extra information that we do not have, because it appears that as of today, we still don't know actually what the recommendation will be.
And I can forward that to you immediately tonight. As I said, it's part of something that we already submitted to the agenda. I can get that to you tonight.
Yeah, the only problem with that is that we just don't have accessibility to that.
I understand.
Now. So thank you very much. If
Thank
there's
you.
no additional questions, comments from the members of the committee or board members, thank you. So as I was saying, and I'm getting really nervous because I'm seeing member Alexander sitting back there, and I know we got another committee meeting, so we want to hurry up and get through this. And I'm sorry for the delay. So board members, event information, I think we've all taken a look at that. If there are any questions or comments on that, no questions or comments. Any unfinished business? No unfinished business. Any new business? May I have a motion for adjournment? Did you have new business?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow up on the information that I sent Thursday regarding some positions. The first one is...
I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter, you want to say a little bit more? Give us a little more idea of what you're talking about.
Okay, yes. So I sent some information on, actually on Friday via email on some notes. And it was under staffing. And one of the positions is the WAPS Membership and Community Engagement Coordinator, which they fund their own positions at the summit. And so I was just letting you know that this position at some point in time is going to come in front of you, and it's going to say new because he's kind of reworked the position for the needs of the radio station. And then also we have a Secretary 3 position once the recommendation is on the board agenda. Oh, any questions about the WAPS?
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Board members, members of the board, are there any questions, Mrs. Carter? No.
Just about that one. No. Okay, and then the next position that was sent was the confidential Secretary 3 position. We have a Secretary 3 that is retiring, and we're replacing it with a Secretary 3 confidential because of the work that will be required of this particular position. They'll be dealing with confidential information as relates to background checks and things like that. So it's just it's going to say new, but it's a wash. It's a Secretary 3 to a Secretary 3.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter.
The next one was General Counsel. I know there's been talk about General Counsel. So once that position is posted and filled and it comes to the board, that too will say new. And then we will not be filling the Labor Relations Director position for that position. And then the last position, once it comes to the board, would be the Administrative Assistant Confidential position. And this is the one I know that Superintendent Outley said, let's bring this to this committee so that we can hear how the board feels about this position. And right now in that department, we are accruing a lot of overtime, which is almost half the salary of a full-time position within that department because of the workload in that department. And so we do have some savings across the board as it relates to the budget, and then also movement of funds to help with supporting this particular position once that comes. Any questions regarding any of those?
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. If there's nothing else to come before the board, then we're not asking any questions, no questions. If nothing else to come before the board, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Aye.